So you're going global with your SaaS. Are you actually ready? And is your company aligned across different departments? Hello and welcome to Global SaaS Focus. This is a series of show podcasts that explore key topics about growing B2B SaaS businesses in other countries. I'm Nicola Calabrese, founder of Undertow. We create and manage localization programs for B2B SaaS companies so they can grow globally.
And my name is Clément Dumont. I'm one of the co-founders of the Growth Syndicate, and we help B2B tech companies with their growth and go-to-market strategy.
Today, we're going to discuss what companies need to have in place to make their international expansion a success. Clément, what are your initial thoughts on this?
It's a really good intro question. And I think the answer is going to be starting by it depends. So I've done it with different type of companies, different type of SaaS, but also, different industries. And what I see often is that there's no one solution for everybody, right? For all type of companies. And that will really depend on what type of company you have. So I would say a more classic, SaaS model. Probably you're not going to need, at least at the beginning, some offices in a different country or boots on the ground or a specific CS team, depending obviously on the market you open. The product is the king, right? And the magic happens there most of the time. So it's more about understanding if your audience is familiar with your product or doing research around your product in English. So that will obviously depend on your audience, right? After I work in companies like the manufacturing industry, where even though everything happens online, because, it was kind of we call it MaaS, so manufacturing as a service, right? So similar as a SaaS, but for manufacturing, you still need, it's pretty much like sales-led type of companies. So you're going to need boot on the ground. You're going to need to create that trusted element. You need to have this local presence to actually make sure you're successful in your expansion. So I think it really depends on your type of company. And obviously if already your company needs more, a strong CS team or a strong sales team in order to close, then most likely if you go to a country where you need to localize, then you will also need those type of roles on a certain level that can speak the local language.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that I usually recommend is to go through every department and see, since they need to be aligned, there's several things in each department that you should look out for. For example, in product, to look if your product is actually complying with regional regulations like GDPR in Europe. If the UI, UX elements are localized, that doesn't mean just translating in the language sense, like having strings in the local language, but also making sure that like date formats and currencies are localized, because otherwise it wouldn't make much of a great experience for local users. And then in marketing, having do you actually have a multilingual content and culturally relevant messaging, like something that is tailored to the need of the local market? And as you said, look into if you have competitors, is your brand trusted in new regions? Is it completely new? And also, this is important, sometimes underestimated, if you have budgeted for actual localized campaign or regional influencers, because you might want to rely on local partners and local influencers to expand your reach and build trust. And then for customer success as well, it's important to consider, can you offer multilingual support and time zone friendly SLAs? So when you go into some regions, the time difference might be huge from your home market. So if you don't have somebody that can actually be close to the customers at the time that they need it in the time zone, that might be a make or break deal in some situations.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. I think as well that obviously it will depend on the country you wanna expand, right? So I think, and the type of audience you're talking to. So if you talk to a more traditional audience, that's used to really do business in the local language, that you're gonna have to keep all those into account. But now let's say you're a MarTech, you're a SaaS company working in MarTech, like your chances of having at least part of our audience doing some research in English in certain markets, it allows you to go with a kind of a sleeve version of localization to actually test the market first, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially when it comes to sales channels, when you're going into a new region, understanding what are the typical sales channel, the one that works best. What worked in your home country doesn't necessarily work in the same way in a new market. And the last one, which again is really important, is if the leadership is aligned on priorities. So our team actually collaborating on timelines, risk. And in general, it's great to start small, validate assumptions, and then iterate. You cannot do all at once. You need to be focused. But again, this is something that is important to stress. When I say test, it doesn't mean try out the market to see if it goes. It's like testing out the messaging, the channels, and see if what works in your home market, is it going to work exactly the same? Or maybe you need to adjust a bit, because some pain points might be different in a new market. Some, even like ICP might be slightly different in a new market. So you need to adjust your messaging as well. And in some cases, even the product.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's something that a lot of companies take for granted. They're like, okay, we sell in a certain way or we communicate in a certain way on our home market. we're just going one market across the border, so it must be the same thing. I think it's something that companies often, overlook. But this is not the case. So it's always good to do your research in front, or analyze a bit the market, and be also aware that when you're gonna go abroad, you're going to be testing, is what you said, right? You're going to be testing, and you have to be critical about maybe things don't work, but it might also be because you have to communicate in a different way, or you have to use different channels. There's a lot of aspects, like variant pieces, that you don't have control yet on it. So you just have to be aware of it, and don't expect, the same results that you have currently in your home market right away. I think that's something important as well to note.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to close this first episode. Hi, Nicola here. Thank you for joining us on this special episode of the Multilingual Content Podcast, powered by Undertow. We create and manage localization programs for B2B SaaS companies so they can grow globally. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and remember to subscribe and give 5 stars to our podcast. Your contribution makes all the difference. See you next time.